Formula One fans. This is the Formula One News Hour, and I am your host, Jonathan Steele, and coming to you from actually Little Rock, Arkansas today. Left St. Louis and made it to Arkansas on my way home to Austin, Texas. So we are excited because we're really going to get week after week. Well, so we might have a couple of days, a week or so in between with some, but we're going to have, back to the regular season schedule after that big gap because the Chinese dropped out, sorry. So just an update from yesterday and why Max Verstappen really didn't make an impact on Leclerc there in the sprint for the pole, and that was of course because he had a big old hole in the side of his pod, in the side part of his car, from where George Russell had drifted into him and put him into the wall. But so anyway, that probably cost him 3, 4, maybe 5 miles an hour, and so he was just not able to get it. So it's going to be interesting today to see if Verstappen, his car's good, all in one shape, and he can hold it together. It's going to be interesting to see if in fact he goes ahead and pulls off the win today. So excited to see it. We're about to start probably here in about 4 or 5 minutes. So let's take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Thinology, Give, Send, Go, Cloud Hub, and Moms for Liberty. And as I mentioned last week, we are expecting to have another sponsor, maybe 2 sponsors next week. So that'll be really good. Help us keep this program going and keep it alive. It's something I really enjoy doing. It's not my day job, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. After following Formula One for some 60 years now, it's hard to imagine, that I used to listen to Formula One races on a valve radio powered by a big old battery that was, probably 8 inches long and then 6 inches square. And the inside the radio was all kinds of valves. We could only get in the beginning Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio 3, and Radio 4 from the BBC. When I got to be in my early teens, we finally managed to pull in a really good rock station called Radio Luxembourg. But anyway, that's a little bit about my history, and we'll touch on it some more as the weeks and months go by here. But it's great to be coming to you. It's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the start of the race. I'm looking to see how Max Verstappen handles Leclerc. And then of course to see how the race ends. It's going to be a really, I think, interesting race. I wouldn't be surprised to see it, not too different from the way it's starting off, with the top 4 or 5 players being Perez, Verstappen, Aston Martin guy, and I'll get to his name in a minute. You think Joe Biden's bad at 80? I'm going on 73, and I'm getting as bad as he is. So anyway, we're looking forward to the race. It's about to start here in a few minutes. We'll have the warm-up lap, and then we'll have the race starting. So we'll be right back to you in just a few minutes. But let's go ahead and thank our sponsor for the beginning of the race, Cloud Hub. Cloud Hub, as you've heard me say over the last year now, is a different kind of social media site. It's the type of social media site you want to belong to. Why? Because there's no censorship. That's big today. There's no censorship. If you've been watching the news with Elon Musk buying Twitter, all of the government interference in social media, it's absolutely disgusting. This is just like the old Soviet Union. It's just like North Korea. It's just like some of these other, like China as an example. China is getting really bad because they are really now using AI and facial recognition to really pinpoint those people they don't like. Folks, this is terrible. Get off those sites and get to CloutHub as fast as you can. CloutHub's got all kinds of different things they can offer you. They can offer you your private channel. They can offer you all kinds of stuff, plus all of the stuff that you would get from a typical social media site. Go to clouthub.com. That is clouthub.com for all of your social media needs. And we'll be right back in just a few moments. And of course, welcome back. And of course, this is the Baku Grand Prix. As I mentioned earlier, if you ever get a chance, go visit Baku. You will not be wasting your time. It is an incredible city. You can see today and 2,000-3,000 years ago. It's an interesting circuit. It's on the streets. It's through some of the old sectors of Baku. It's going to be 51 laps. There's 20 turns, and the elevation is 29.96 meters. So get your calculator out quickly, and you will pretty much figure out how many feet that is. But having been there, I can tell you it's pretty much sea level. So it's a beautiful city, and you will have an incredible time if you ever decide to go there. So I'm going to, as we get going here, I'm going to try and remember to turn down my volume on the TV so that it doesn't interfere with the podcast here. But as I mentioned yesterday, the starting grid is Perez, Leclerc, and Verstappen, and behind them is Alonso. That's the guy's name I couldn't remember a couple of minutes ago. Tires are soft, medium, and hard. And if you're watching TV or you're going to watch it on TV, the soft is red, the medium is yellow, and the hard is white. So if you look at as the tires are going, as they're going around, they see the cars. You look at the tires, and you can tell what tires the cars are on by the color stripes on the side. That incidentally started about 10 to 15 years ago. It was a little more complicated back then, but they've simplified it over the years. So as I mentioned, they're talking about the starting grid now. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda is starting dead last because of his little mishap during the sprint to the pole yesterday. Oscar Piastri is for McLaren. He's the rookie, is starting in 10th, so that's a nice place. His teammate Lando Norris is starting in 9th. So not such a bad start this week for McLaren compared to last week. But starting I just see, that's very interesting. Max Verstappen is starting. Something must have happened over the night that I don't know about, because Checo is starting back on the field, and we've got Leclerc starting in pole and Verstappen starting in second place. So some interesting stuff going on. I've been a little bit out of touch. I was at a wedding in St. Louis. My nephew, who really was rushing into his wedding because he'd only been dating his fiancée for 7 years. And I mentioned to him, I said, buddy, you're rushing into this, you need to slow down, because this rushing into things is not a good thing. Of course, all he had for me was a wry smile. He's a very quiet guy, very, very nice guy. He's, if you ever want to get into cryptocurrency, but he did not recommend FTX. But if you decide you want to get into cryptocurrency, send me an email, and I'll send you his contact information. As a young man, he's 30 years old now, about to be turned 31. He has made a lot of money writing derivatives for cryptocurrency. So the cars are lined up. They're on the starting grid, waiting for the starter to take them to their warm-up lap, which will take, of course, 3 to 4 minutes. And in fact, they've left now. They were on the warm-up lap, and as they go around the warm-up lap, we can really look, and I think this week is not going to be that much different from the weeks before. I hate to say that because it's boring, right? But I think Red Bull's going to come in maybe 1 or 2 or 1 and 3 or something like that. They're certainly going to be in the top 5, the two of them together. And then we're going to have a Ferrari. We might get lucky and have a Mercedes in there, although I don't know. Although Lewis Hamilton did qualify quite well, they're just not, these cars compared to Red Bull, these cars are just not race ready. Leclerc is very fast. In fact, I read a thing by Chinook Kandran, I think is his last name. He's on Sky Sports. He's one of the commentators. And he thinks that Charles Leclerc might be the fastest driver in Formula One because he's consistently up there when it comes to qualifying times. Now, that's different from race times, but he thinks that Leclerc is really a really fast driver, and in fact, faster than Verstappen. That's very interesting. Now, if you go back in history, he is a former Formula One driver, and probably one of the only Indian Formula One drivers of the last that I can remember of, and a very good one at that. So it's really interesting. Indians are best known for cricket. They are incredible cricket players, and also field hockey. Field hockey is a big sport throughout Western Europe and, of course, India and some of the other Asian countries. And that's what really Indians are most noted for. They've had a couple of really good tennis players over the year. In fact, if you call John McEnroe and ask him about a guy called Krishnan, McEnroe will probably swear at you because Krishnan nearly beat him at Wimbledon. And he beat him nearly beat him. He didn't beat him. He nearly beat him by throwing McEnroe off speed balls. And McEnroe took him a long time. It took him into the third set before he figured out how to handle it. Anyway, back to Formula One. They're on the formation lap, and we'll be right back with you. This part of the formation lap is brought to you by Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go. Folks, you really can't help what happens to you in life, but you can help who you choose to help you. And when you're looking for crowdfunding for either to help a friend or help yourself with medical expenses or other expenses associated with something bad that's happened, or you just want to get some funding to start a business, you can go to Give, Send, Go. That is givesendgo.com. Again, givesendgo.com. And we'll be right back. Okay, we have the green flag being waved, and we have Hulkenberg and Ocon starting from the pit lane, and they are off. And let's see how it goes here into the first turn. In the first turn, Leclerc leads the way, and he is followed by both Red Bulls. So very, very interesting start to this race now. Both Red Bulls are right behind Leclerc, and we are off and we are running, and there's a lot of places being changed right now during the start, and they come into the second turn now, and now we're starting to see them kind of lose that bunch up. They're starting to fill the field full of the cars, and we're off to the races. So let's see where we're standing in the standings. If you see me keep leaving the camera, that's because I got the TV off to the side here, watching what is going on as I'm bringing it to you live. So if you remember, I said Baku is a street course, and so it goes through some of the old town and some of the new town, and it has. We've already got a yellow flag. Why do we have a yellow flag? I don't know. I'm sure they're going to show us here in just a moment, but yellow flag, and they've gone back to green. So probably what happened is someone spun out, and then they got the car back and going into the right direction again. So right now, Leclerc is still leading both the Red Bulls. Now remember, we're going to go, I believe it's 2 or 4 laps before we can bring in DRS. So with non-DRS, a lot of these cars are very equal, especially the Ferrari to the Red Bull. They're very equal in capabilities. And as you just heard me mention, Leclerc has been pinned as one of the fastest drivers out there in the qualifying. So that means while things are happening on these opening laps without DRS, he's going to be able to dictate a little bit. And depending on the distance that he can put between him and the second and third place player, he might be able to hold on for a while. So right now we've got Leclerc, we've got Verstappen, we have Perez, Carlos Sainz, that's interesting, that's jumped up there, Hamilton and Alonso. And behind Alonso, Stroll. So the Aston Martin this year are performing incredibly well. I mean, right now they are in 6th and 7th position. And don't be surprised to see, especially Alonso move up. Lance Stroll this year seems to have been able to calm his nerves a little bit and not causing as many problems as he has in the past. So we'll see how this race develops and whether Lance can hold it all together for an entire race. So they're actually now coming into lap 3, and I've just been listening, and DRS is enabled after lap 2, so not lap 4 as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to see Max Verstappen, who is less than half a second behind Charles Leclerc. We're going to see Verstappen probably take the lead from Leclerc here on lap 3. And they're showing a replay now of what happened during that yellow flag incident earlier. After the restart, not the restart, but after the start. And so we're going to watch here and see what happens, and I'll bring that to you. It's a wicked left-hander for the second turn, and a lot of drivers miss that, and so they've got a runoff there. In fact, a couple of years ago, we saw Lewis Hamilton actually lose the race because he went into that turn too fast and then had to take the runoff and then ended up pretty much dead last in the race. He did make his way back because it was soon enough in the race that he could make his way back. But we're just watching here the incident, and what happened was it looks like somebody touched the wheels of Yuki Tsunoda touched the wheels of somebody. So anyway, we're back to live racing now, and it's only going to be a matter. In fact, it's happening right now. Max Verstappen has just passed Charles Leclerc for the lead, and right behind him is running Mr. Perez, Checo Perez. So we have Red Bull in first and third with a Ferrari splitting them. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see this race kind of end this way. But let's hope we're in for an exciting race, because now we're in lap 4, and the field is starting to spread out a little bit. But we're going to see incidents. It's Azerbaijan. It's a street course, so we're going to see incidents. We're going to see safety cars. We're going to see all those things that kind of make this circuit a very interesting race. And it has always been a really interesting race here at Azerbaijan. So we've just been watching Checo Perez come up behind Charles Leclerc, and now he's really within a car length. We really thought that he was going to pull away on the back straightaway there and take him, but he didn't quite have the pace. But it's quite obvious that the Red Bull cars have a much better pace in race conditions than the Ferrari. Ferrari seem to do very well during qualifying and things like that, when they can use DRS everywhere, wherever they want. But once you get into race conditions, they fill these cars full of fuel. Remember, at the beginning of the race, they have all the fuel they're going to use for the entire race. And what happens in these Formula One cars, at the beginning of each lap, they transfer fuel from the main tank to a reserve tank. I shouldn't say reserve tank. Let's say it's a race tank, and they transfer the amount of fuel from one tank to the other to get them around the track that time. And of course, the reason they do this, and we saw it a couple of years ago with Grosjean when he had that really serious wreck. they make sure that the amount of fuel that can really cause damage is reserved to like a lap. So the fuel is being transferred all the time, but the fuel is really heavy, and so in race conditions like this is why the Ferrari is not performing as well as the Red Bull, is because the weight distribution of the fuel is really a tough. And Sergio Perez now has just moved past Charles Leclerc to take the lead. Let me turn the sound down a little bit so it doesn't bother you guys. But yeah, so now we've got Red Bull 1 and 2. Is it going to end that way? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, these Red Bull cars are just so good. But I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't make for a boring race. We're on lap 6 of 51, so we've got a long way to go. There's lots of things can happen. We could have wrecks. We can have safety cars. We can have all kinds of stuff happen. We could have the handling go away. We can have tire issues. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen that could disturb the way things are shaping out right now. But you know what? I'm kind of going to predict that the Red Bull cars will be in the top 3, and then we'll probably have the top 4. I'm going to predict the top 4 will be 2 Red Bull cars, a Ferrari, and I'm going to predict Alonso is going to be in there as well. Those Aston Martin cars are just incredible. So we're going to keep watching here and see how it unfolds. Okay, so let me turn the sound down here. Going into the 7th lap, we've still got the same top 3, Perez, Verstappen, Perez, and Leclerc. So then we've got Hamilton and we got Carlos Sainz in 4th, and then we've got Hamilton, and then we've got Alonso, and then Lance Stroll. So the Aston Martin is doing just remarkably well. And then behind them we've got the McLaren of Lando Norris. So they've done some things here over the last couple of weeks while we've had this big break to give themselves a pretty decent chance because just a couple of cars back from him is the young Australian driver Piastri. So interestingly, Valtteri Bottas has just pitted. Why he pitted, I don't know, but anyway, he's in the pits and he's out the pits. So all the way back, very interesting here. Well, Bottas is now dead last, of course. But what the other thing that's interesting is the 2 Alpine cars, which, if you remember last year, Alpine finished, I think, 4th in the championship standings. But right now, those 2 cars are running 17th. They're running 17th and 19th. What is going on with Ocon and Pierre Gasly? We've got the Williams. Albon is running in 12th. If you remember, he started 9th, and then the young rookie is running there in 14th position. So Williams is having a pretty decent day, but of course the news is no different. The Red Bull cars are really dominant. I mean, it's hard to imagine that anybody's going to challenge them this year. Sergio Perez just took the fastest lap. That's kind of interesting. But so you got Red Bull, you got Ferrari, then you've got a Mercedes, and then you've got Alonso. Whereas George Russell is back in 9th position, which is kind of strange because he started off in the 4th position. So something happened there to George Russell that kind of pushed him back in the field somewhat. And we've got Alex Albon right now from Williams' team in the pits. He jumped in and just for whatever reason took a set of tires. We're only on lap 8, so why they're changing tires at this point is beyond me. And now I just see that Max Verstappen now has put in the fastest lap. He's got about a second lead on his teammate Sergio Perez, and Perez has got a 2-second lead on Leclerc. So we're only into 9-10 laps now, and already the gap between the rest of the field and Red Bull is starting to play out to be very, very big. Which like I say, it can make this really not an interesting race, but it's early. We're on lap 10 of 51, and there's all kinds of stuff going to happen between now and then. Will it change the end result? You know, like I say, you've heard me predict the top four, and I really don't know whether it's going to change, other than maybe the order. You know, maybe Leclerc will surprise us all and win this race. I doubt it. But certainly, I'm certainly going to predict that one of the Red Bull cars is going to win this race. Which one now? Who knows? You know, they have this Hannah Schmidt, who is the strategist for Red Bull, and of course her number one thing in life is to make sure Max Verstappen wins. But if she can't make that happen, her number two thing in life is to make sure that Sergio Perez wins. So her whole thing in life is a Red Bull car is going to win this race. So of course it's early yet. Let's hang around, wait and see. And in the meantime, thank all of our sponsors: Thernology, Give, Send, Go, Cloud Hub, and Moms for Liberty. Thanks to those guys, you know, for bringing this podcast to you and helping me offset the expenses of bringing it to you. Of course, they're not that much. You want to get into building a podcast, guys? It's fairly inexpensive. You just need maybe $600-800 for the equipment, and then you're off and running. And we've just seen Lewis Hamilton come into the pits. So it looks like, are these guys changing tires early? Maybe they're on just a two-stop strategy. But that's interesting that now, and Lando Norris has been into the pits to change tires. So some interesting stuff going on early with the tires. Are they going from the soft to the hard early and expecting to make it to the end of the race on the hard? We're going to find out. Okay, on lap 10 we have a yellow flag. So we're going to have, I don't know if we're going to have, it's Nick De Vries that has had a problem here. He is not being able to do stuff that get around the turn like he wanted to. So they're going to bring in Max Verstappen, and I'm guessing just for tire changes. They've left Sergio Perez out, so now Perez is leading, Leclerc is number 2, Verstappen's in the pit. Now he's number 4 because Carlos Sainz has just gone by. He's number 5 because Alonso's gone by. He's number 6. He's number 7 now because, as you know, it takes, once these yellow flags come out, everybody's got to kind of slow down. But interesting strategy there from Hannah Schmidt to bring Verstappen in while he's leading the race, because now he is 5 seconds behind Russell. And Russell is 3 seconds behind Stroll, and Stroll is 6 seconds behind. So Max Verstappen's probably lost at least 14 to 16 seconds here. So we look at Nick De Vries' car just sitting off to the side. The safety car, of course, is going to come out because they're going to have to pick that car up and move it off the track. But was this a smart move? It's very early in the race, so whether it's now they're bringing in Perez. So okay, so I guess everybody's gonna come in and change tires. They're going to give up these positions. The top 6 or 8 positions are really not going to change that much by the time all of this is finished. Is Ferrari bringing people in? That's going to be interesting to see. As of right now, Ferrari is not bringing anybody in. They're bringing Alonso in from Aston Martin. So with that, you've got to imagine that they are on this particular incident, they're bringing everybody in for tire changes, which would suggest to me that they're going to the hard tire so that they can finish the rest of the race. But let's see. Let's see if I can figure out. So they're saying a pit stop right now is 11 seconds. So typically in the race, when we're in racing conditions, it's 19 seconds. And now they're bringing in Leclerc. So everybody's going to box. So what that means is, of course, is that Verstappen's going to end up back in the lead because all of the people behind him are coming in, or I should say in front of him, are coming in to box to get new tires and everything. And that's going to, as they roll through, that's going to put him back into the lead. Okay, so after all of the pit stops, Verstappen did not get back into the lead like I thought he would. Right now, it's Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz. So you got the 2 Red Bulls, the 2 Ferraris, and then after that you've got Fernando Alonso, and behind Alonso is George Russell, then Lance Stroll, and then Esteban Ocon, and then we have Lewis Hamilton all the way back in 10th position. That's kind of a surprise. I don't know why that would happen, because he was up there in, I think, 4th position before all of this. Oh, but if you remember, he stopped before the yellow safety car came out. So that would drop him back, because remember, the 11 seconds to the 19 seconds. Under racing conditions, it's 19 seconds. Under the safety car, it's 11 seconds. So that essentially put him back 8 seconds. So that's why he is all the way back in 10th position. And then you've got Lando Norris in 11th, and they've just taken away the others. They're going to show what happened here to De Vries. And he actually didn't crash. It looks like he just took his car out of the race for whatever reason. Maybe a let's see, they're going to see what's on the radio right here. And they didn't show it. But obviously something went wrong with the car. It was not that he crashed or that he had a mishap. Obviously they had a mechanical problem with the car, and so they had to take the car out of the race. On these cars, if they sense a problem, they will take them out of the race straight away, because remember, the hybrids, they're both gas powered and battery powered. So when they have a power plant problem, that's what they call them now, power plants, they would, to protect them and to protect their investment, because they're so expensive, they'll just say pull over, stop. They won't even let them finish the lap, get back to the pits, nothing. They just say stop, to protect the cost of what it's about to cost them to get the car back in shape for the next race. Which by the way, the next race is in Miami. We did apply for a press pass to Miami, but for whatever reason we were denied that press pass, which was kind of strange, because we were given a press pass last year at Dakota, and of course we're hoping this year we get the same one, and maybe hoping we'll get a press pass to Las Vegas. But you heard me last week say maybe the reason is because Formula One has started their own Formula One News, and of course we're the Formula One News Hour. But anyway, I don't think they're so much bigger than us. I don't think that's the reason. I think that we probably don't have a big enough audience, or they don't think we have a big enough audience yet to justify giving us a press pass to somewhere like Miami. Anyway, we will be bringing that race to you live next weekend, and looking forward to that. So the safety car is ending now, and we've got so Max Verstappen is about 1.3 seconds behind Leclerc. So and Perez is about 1.3 seconds ahead of Leclerc. So we've got the Ferrari sitting dead center in between the 2 Red Bull cars. At the bottom end, of course, we've got Nick De Vries. He's out, and then pulling up the bottom. What has happened to Bottas, Valtteri Bottas, this year? It just seems like the Alfa Romeo cars can't get a break, because you got Bottas at number 19 and you've got Zhou Guanyu at number 14. You know, last year these guys were up there in the top 5 or 6 as well for the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, something really is not going well for the Alfa Romeo this year, along with McLaren. Although McLaren are doing a little better this week. They're in the middle of the field. Right now they're running 11 and 13. So we'll see how it goes. And we're back to full racing now, and it looks like Verstappen is trying to take Leclerc on the inside. Is he going to get past him? Yes, he is. So we're back to first and second for Red Bull, as it only took Verstappen half a lap to get past Leclerc. So what's going to happen here? So Alonso is just taking out Carlos Sainz to move up into fourth position. So I love these restarts because all kinds of really good things happen here, including not so good things for some of the drivers. But everybody's got away cleanly, and now they're starting to spread out the field again. And so now we've got Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, and then Stroll. So guys, these Aston Martins are really doing really well this year. It's really nice to see another team up there competing with the what we think of as the big money sport, because everybody's kind of even in the money now. That the Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull can't spend any more money than the rest of the teams. Where's Haas? Let's see. Haas is in 10th position and in 17th. Hulkenberg is in 10th and Magnussen is in 17th. But Haas got themselves a big time sponsor this year as well, so money's not an issue for those guys anymore. Excuse me. So yeah, money's not an issue for those guys anymore. So yeah, it's nice to see them all kind of closing up. It would be better, I think, if some of the teams lower down could really challenge the Red Bulls and the Ferraris. And now it looks like Aston Martin. Aston Martin is, of course, challenging these guys. But we're going to see. We've got a lot of laps to go. We're on lap 16 here of 51. So still a long way to go in this race. Okay, so after the yellow car got back into the track and everything, we got everything going again. So we're into lap 16 now, and so we got the two Red Bulls up front, Verstappen and Perez, 1 and 2. Then we have Charles Leclerc, and then behind them, I've just seen Lewis Hamilton overtake his teammate to take seventh position. So that still leaves Alonso up in fourth, and then Carlos Sainz in fifth, and then behind Hamilton comes Lance Stroll, and then his teammate who lost George Russell, who lost. And he's just complaining to his team that he did a shitty restart. But it's kind of interesting. And it's a street course, so all kinds of things can happen on a street course that you don't necessarily have happen on a track course, and that's because on a street course, it's not as smooth and it's not as nice and it's not as predictable as a race course. So. One of the things that, if you remember during my interview with Mario Andretti, and he's talking about the COTA track in Austin, Texas, and he said, it's a world-class track. And so the drivers have absolutely know what's going to happen at every turn, every straight, everything they do. The track is so good and so predictable. That is not the case for a street track. A street track, nothing is predictable. And all it takes is a little bump that they didn't experience maybe on the throughput before, and the car takes a little jiggle, and all of a sudden they're off to the right, off to the left. All kinds of things happen on street tracks that do not happen on the race design tracks because of the unpredictability of the streets. And I'm looking now, and it looks like Sergio Perez has taken the fastest lap away from Max Verstappen. Let me turn down the sound here so that it doesn't kind of interfere for you guys. Sorry about that. I get so into watching the race along and bringing the race to you that sometimes I forget to turn the sound down. And while I'm watching it, I've just watched now, and Max Verstappen has now taken back the fastest lap from Sergio Perez. There's some real competition going on between those two guys, folks. Sergio Perez is up for a contract renewal this year, and Christian Horner has made no secret that he wants to see Perez winning more races. Think about that. Obviously he wants his number one guy to win the world championship, but he also wants to see Perez being really competitive, because Perez is starting to get up there. He's probably mid-30s, so and he's been around a while. So there's young guys waiting in the wings, which is always the case in life, right? There's always the young guys waiting in the wings to push you off to one side and send you out to retirement and everything. So Perez has really got to prove himself. Now, the one thing Perez has going for him is that he's got this really rich multi-billionaire from Mexico. He owned the guy Carlos. Can't remember Carlos's last name, but he owns the telephone company in Mexico, along with cement companies. He's a conglomerate, and he's still up there in probably the 10 richest people in the world. So and he sponsors Sergio Perez. So while Perez might not win out maybe on the track, he's going to win out in the dollars and cents, and dollars and cents dominate this sport. Okay, so we have just passed the halfway point of the race. We're on lap 26, and the top four positions have not changed. We have Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc and Alonso, and then followed by Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. Finishing out the top 10, we have Lance Stroll, George Russell, and Esteban Ocon, and then Nico Hülkenberg driving the Haas car. If you remember, maybe I forgot to tell you, Nico actually started from the pit lane because they made some suspension changes to his car after the sprint to the pole yesterday. Then finishing out the rest of the field, we have Lando Norris in 11th position, Niki Tsunoda in 12th, then Piastri, the other McLaren, in 13th, Alex Albon Alex is in 14th. He's with the Williams team. And then Kevin Magnussen, who is actually the number one driver for McLaren, is down there in 15th position. You got Joe Granu with the Alfa Romeo in 16th, and Mr. Sargent, the American driver, driving the other Williams car in 17th, followed by Valtteri Bottas, and then Pierre Gasly, who's all the way down at number 19th. I don't know what has happened to Pierre Gasly this season. He too is really struggling. I don't know if it's with the car or himself, but certainly things are not well there. So we're just looking at a replay here of Nico Hülkenberg, and looks like he hit the wall coming out there on like turn 6 or 7, let's see. And anyway, his car doesn't seem to be any the worse the way for it. So right now we're in a pretty boring race where there's nobody really trying to overtake anybody. Verstappen's still got the fastest lap, and there's really just not a lot going on, and this is not what Formula One wants. Formula One wants some real challenges to the front, but also a lot of stuff going on with those middle cars. And right now, you're really seeing it's follow the leader type racing, and this is not what Formula One wants at all. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some changes coming down here during the middle of the season, because if this is to go on for the rest of the season, they are going to lose viewers. They probably won't lose any track guys, but I can see that they could lose viewers, because this makes for fairly boring television where we're just watching them go around and around and around and around. You, at least in NASCAR, when you're watching them go around and around and around, they keep having some wrecks and the cars fly and they go rollovers and all kinds of stuff, which keeps the spectators kind of interested. But you don't have that so much in Formula One. These cars are so reliable and the drivers are so good. you don't see that many mishaps. Occasionally, the last big one that I can think of was Grosjean back in 2020. I'm trying to remember the circuit. Maybe it was Azerbaijan, no, it went Azerbaijan. I'll enter it into recall and I'll get back to you later with it. But we need to get some things happening here, because right now the distances between the car. At one point, George Russell was challenging Lance Stroll, but now George Russell's fallen back 1.5 seconds from Lance Stroll, and he was only challenging Lance Stroll because Lance got into a little wiggle going into and out of one of the corners, which let him catch up by 0.5 second. But the Aston Martin car is so much better, and these two drivers, Alonso and Stroll, are doing a much better job of driving it. And in fact, there's a little blurb on a few minutes ago where Alonso was advising Lance Stroll on how to handle the brakes of these cars. If you remember, braking is really a really big part of these Formula One cars, and a little too hard and they lock up, not hard enough and they have to go straight on. But the braking is really a big part, and also preserving the battery and the tires and stuff like that. But so right now we're really just watching these guys go around and around the track, and Verstappen still has the fastest lap. We're on now lap 29, so we've got about another 21 laps to go, and really it's right now it's follow the leader, and the leader is Checo Perez. So we're at lap 31 now, and Max Verstappen is just talking about the difficulties he's having with his engine braking. Remember, we've talked in the past about how important brake horsepower is in these Formula One cars versus the horsepower itself. So they really rely on the engines to provide braking. So one of the things that they're just talking about is adjusting it electronically so that as Max Verstappen is changing down through the gears, he gets more of a braking performance out of his engine. Of course, when you're adjusting for braking performance out of the engine, then you're losing some of the torque performance as you come out of the corners. So where he may be gaining in going into the corners to catch up on his teammate using the brakes, he's losing it as he comes out of the corner because he doesn't have the torque in the engine, the opposite. So you're going from braking to torque. So it's kind of a balance. So they're kind of working with that. It's a really, really interesting strategy. When you start thinking about, a lot of people just think about torque and acceleration. They don't think about the importance of braking that the engine does. And it's not just the fact that the engine's braking, but as you're going through the corner itself, the engine is providing a tremendous amount of stabilization. And what I mean by that is the RPM, the engine RPM to the speed of the car and what gear they're in provides a tremendous amount of stability for the car as it goes through the apex of the corner. So that when you hit the gas pedal coming out of the corner, then your back end's not going to come loose and things like that. So if you get a chance, do some research and look up on the importance of this brake horsepower that you've heard me talk about in the past versus torque, or sheer horsepower for the torque. You get a maximum amount of torque as your engine RPMs climb up, but as you're using your engine for braking, then you're trying to bring the engine RPM down to match the gear that you're in. So as an example, these engines are turning at 18,000 RPM. So to get the maximum torque out of that, you want that RPM to be up there as you change through the gears. Now, to get the maximum brake horsepower, you want that RPM coming down, but not too much. Because if it comes down too much, then you've got the opposite effect. Now you don't have the stabilization of your engine as you go into the apex of the corner. So it's like think of it as a harmonic balance between the engine, the car, and the driver as they balance that through the apex of the corner. So that as they hit the gas coming out, their car is totally stable. So they're stabilizing their car going in using the engine, and they're also using the engine to stabilize the car to get maximum torque as they come out. But when they adjust for the braking aspect of the engine, then they're losing some of that torque as they come out on the other side. Very interesting stuff. So anyways, as the race is going on here, where they've just shown a kind of a graph of where Sergio Perez has an advantage over Verstappen, and where Verstappen has an advantage over Perez. So what they're trying to do here is, obviously Red Bull wants Verstappen to win. They want to win the race, but they want their number one driver to win. And right now, he's not able to really catch up and do much because Sergio Perez's car is so well balanced. He's not having any issues at all with either braking or torque coming out of the corners. So right now, he's got about a 2.5 second lead on Max Verstappen. And at one time, Verstappen was probably about half or 3/4 of a second behind him. So as the race is developing and going on now into the second part of this Grand Prix, the car of Sergio Perez is behaving and acting much better than the car of Max Verstappen. And one thing that you've got to remember is that these cars are set up for the number one driver. So the number two driver's got to learn to drive this car with the setup of the number one driver. And right now, what is happening is, because there's a few little issues with Verstappen's car, Sergio Perez is doing a much better job of driving this car than Max Verstappen, who the car was set up for in the beginning. But to his defense, as he said, he's not getting the brake horses or the braking out of the engine that he needs to really go in and brake late into the corners. Because the later you brake, then the more momentum you take into the corner, but then you've got to stabilize it with the engine, and that balance is not there for him. So he's really struggling, I would say, with the cars going into the corner, not so much coming out of the corner because he doesn't have the torque that he needs, so he's not really losing it, but he's struggling with it going into the corners. And just to give you some idea of the dominance that Red Bull has right now, they are nearly 15 seconds ahead of the third place car of Charles Leclerc. And then Alonso is about 1 second behind that. So you can say they've got a 15 second lead on Aston Martin. They've got it's just gone over 14 seconds for the Ferrari. So on these cars where you've got really the exact same amount of dollars being spent, you can now see where the main design guy behind Red Bull in the aerodynamics, who studied under Colin Chapman, by the way, but you can really see where his knowledge and his expertise is really being put on display when you look at the differences that are in these cars, because the engines and the drivetrains and stuff like that are very similar. In fact, they share each other's engines, right? Mercedes engines are in other cars. In fact, Mercedes is in McLaren, I believe. So it really gets down to the aerodynamics, the design, the chassis, and all these different things. And of course, Colin Chapman was the guy that invented not only ground effects, but he also invented the live reaction suspension systems back in the, I'm going to think it's probably the 80s, early 90s, which went into production cars, by the way, probably in the early 90s, especially in the Hondas. Hondas, I think, were the first ones to use it in production cars. So a lot of the stuff that goes on in Formula One, you end up seeing in your production cars. And as I mentioned before, your paddle shifters are the perfect example. All of your paddle shifting technology was developed in Ferrari and now is in everyday production car. Whether it's a paddle or whether you can move your little transmission stick and move it backwards and forwards to change gears manually. So you've got these what we call hybrid automatic transmissions. They can be fully automatic, or you can move them to sport mode and flip through them. And a lot of the cars today have the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. So all good things are coming out of this Grand Prix racing. it normally makes for really exciting stuff. And we've just watched Sergio Perez kiss the wall here as they go through, and a lot of them, as these tires are degrading as the race goes on, they don't have quite the grip. As they're going through some of these corners, they're kissing the walls. So probably at the end of the race, you're going to see little marks on the side of the wheels and tires where they've kissed the walls. So we're coming up with about 10 laps to go, and Alfa Romeo is having a terrible day. Bottas has been into the pits probably 4 or 5 times, and they've just now retired Joe Granew's car. They haven't said what went wrong, but they just said box, which is pit, and so he's out of the race. But not much else has changed. Lewis Hamilton did manage to get past Lance Stroll, and he's kind of trying to challenge Carlos Sainz right now. But I don't think he's going to get past Carlos Sainz because that Ferrari's just a little too quick, and Carlos Sainz kind of nursing the tires right now to make it to the end. So other than that, there's been, for the last 20 laps, maybe more, 25 laps, absolutely nothing has happened. Perez has taken the fastest lap now, but Max Verstappen is dropping back slowly because of his engine braking issues. Alonso's comfortably into 4th place, and Hülkenberg's still in 10th for the Haas, and Magnussen's still in 15th. We've got the Williams teams in 14th and 16th. So really nothing to speak of really has gone on in the last 20-25 laps. Ever since that safety car around lap 10 or 12, whatever it was, a long time ago, there's really just not been a lot of action. There's not been a lot of overtaking, and which is not normal for Azerbaijan. And incidentally, you hear me talking about Azerbaijan. This race actually takes place in the city of Baku. And so when I say go to Azerbaijan and check it out, I'm really talking about going to the city of Baku. It's been 25 years since I was there, and really had, even though I was there on business, really had an enjoyable 3 to 4 days. They don't have a lot of flights there. In fact, I took the Emerson plane. Emerson has about 10 or 12 jets that they use around the world, and so I took the Emerson plane at that time. There was probably a couple of times from Switzerland to Baku, and then from Baku to London. But anyway, that's just my own personal history of Baku that I really enjoyed, and really suggest if you're adventurous in your touristic endeavors, Baku would be one of those things that I would suggest that you should put on your itinerary. But right now we're getting close to the end of the race, and quite frankly, I don't think anything's going to change. The top 5 is Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso, and Sainz, and I think that's the way the race is going to end, because none of those folks are making any impression on the other. Like I said, Hamilton has been challenging Carlos Sainz, but I just don't think that he's going to get past him. But you never know. But even so there's swap positions. All in all, I would chalk this up to, for Azerbaijan, for Baku, a fairly boring race, all in all. Not what we would want to see. But we get that. That's part of racing. You're going to get some races that are really exciting and really challenging, and people are really challenging each other. The weather's beautiful in Baku. That's one good thing, and as it comes into springtime in that part of the world. But really, from a racing and a spectator's perspective, I think this has been a pretty boring morning of racing, but enjoyable as a Formula One fan. Which, as I've said many times, been a Formula One fan for a lot of years. I still enjoy the strategies and still enjoy, watching what's happening out there on the track. And of course, the cars are just so much more reliable today than they were even 10 or 20 years ago, but certainly compared, to when I started watching this back in the 60s and the 70s. The cars are a lot more reliable, the engineering's a lot different, and of course the drivers are a lot different. Nobody got into Formula One by karting back in the 60s and 70s. The karting really started to come in the late 70s and 80s and stuff like that. But nowadays, if you're not into karting, you don't get into Formula One because you don't get to Formula 3 and you don't get to Formula 2. So yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see, and Mario Andretti, if you remember, agrees, you're not going to see a guy start off driving rally cars and then 4 or 5 years later he's driving a Formula One car. So we've got 8-9 laps left to go, and Hamilton is not making any impression on Carlos Sainz. We've got Joe Granu out of the race, and of course Nick de Vries early on that caused the yellow car to come out, the safety car. But other than that, we're just watching the cars go around and around and around and around. So we'll probably take a commercial break here again in another few minutes. But in the meantime, we're just going to sit back here and watch the cars come in for the final laps here, and we'll bring that to you in just a few moments. So as we're coming up here for the final laps, we're at lap 43 of 51. Let's thank Moms for Liberty for sponsoring the Formula One News Hour. You've heard me talk about Moms for Liberty quite a few times. They're an organization that is promoting parents' involvement in both school boards and in the education of their children. There are too many things going on in the education of our children today, and that do not belong in the classroom. And I'm talking about social issues, transgender issues, and things like that. Certainly, those are part of life, and nobody objects to those things in life. But they certainly have no place in the classroom. The classroom is for learning science and technology and mathematics and English and history and languages and all those kinds of things. It's not about learning about the different sexual preferences of different adults. So please get yourselves involved with Moms for Liberty. That is momsforliberty.org. They've got about 183, maybe a little more chapters now, and they're really out there trying to get parents involved and becoming involved in the school boards in their communities, and also getting involved in the education of their children, and really, making sure that these schools focus on educating their children about the things that they need to succeed in life going forward. Learning about somebody's sexuality is not going to teach them anything about how to make a good living in life after they get out of school. So please go to momsforliberty.org. That is momsforliberty.org. Okay, so now back to the racing, and Lewis Hamilton is still trying his best to get past Carlos Sainz, but has yet to be able to do so. And now we're getting really into the closing laps of the race, and he's dropped back now. He's nearly a full second behind him. So to really, because Ferrari have a pretty good pace down the straightaways, not as good as Red Bull. Nobody has that, but they've got a better pace down the straightaway than does the Mercedes, and because even with the DRS. Then Lewis Hamilton is not able to get past Carlos Sainz. And we just had another replay of a Red Bull kissing the walls. These tires are going away on these guys now, and as they're going into the corners, they're not getting the grip that they really need at the pace they're doing. But I don't think that's going to affect too much going forward. They are getting into lapping other drivers now, so that always can create little hazards for them. But the marshals will put out a blue flag. A blue flag tells the car, you need to move over and let the faster cars behind you come by. So we'll see that going on more and more here. And Sergio Perez still has the fastest lap. Max Verstappen is just maintaining his distance, is about 3 seconds behind Perez, but they're both making a distance on Carlos Sainz now, who is now 17 seconds behind. And Alonso, strangely enough, I would be looking for him to try and close the gap here on Leclerc, because Alonso tends to save his tires at the beginning of the race to really push at the end, but he's dropped from 1.5 seconds back to 3.5 seconds now behind Charles Leclerc. So folks, this race is going to end with Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso and Carlos Sainz being your top 5, and then your bottom 5 of those cars that are still running. It is going to be, they just took it away from me so they can show a replay of the Haas car, who got a really nice sponsor this year out of MoneyGram. That I think I mentioned that earlier. MoneyGram. Actually, I think I might call those guys and see if they want to sponsor the Formula One News Hour. Because we do have a couple of new sponsors. Hopefully, I was expecting one of them this week, but it got delayed a little bit. But a couple of new sponsors coming in for the Formula One News Hour to help us. But anyway, the running order for the bottom 5 is Alex Albon in the Williams 14th. Williams kind of a little disappointing this week. They've generally been scoring points. And then Kevin Magnussen, and then Logan Sargent for Williams as well, followed by Valtteri Bottas. I mean, Bottas has just had a horrible day. Actually, Alfa Romeo just had a horrible day anyway, because Joe Granu didn't even finish. Interesting. Charles Leclerc has just taken the fastest lap away from Sergio Perez. But what's going to happen here is Mercedes, or maybe Carlos Sainz, somebody, George Russell maybe, is going to come in with 2 laps to go, put on a new set of tires, and they're going to get that 1 point for having the fastest lap. So right now it's Leclerc. For most of the race, it's been either Perez or Verstappen. But like I said, that's going to change. And anyway, we're getting close here to the last 2 or 3 laps of the race. So as we're getting down here to the last 2 or 3 laps of the race, we've still got 2 drivers that have not pitted, strange enough, Esteban Ocon and Nico Hülkenberg. Now, the rules are every car has to pit at least once, otherwise they'll get disqualified. So we're getting close to the end. In interest, we've just seen a pass here in what must be the last 30 laps. So Lando Norris just passed Nico Hülkenberg, probably because Hülkenberg's got the original tires on. But he's going to have to pop pit at some time or get disqualified from the race. So that's not going to happen. Esteban Ocon is pitting now with just 2-3 laps to go. So Ocon's pitted, so he's got his pit stop in. So Hülkenberg is going to have to pit or get disqualified. And I can't see the team letting him get disqualified. It's going to be really interesting to see when this team pulls him in. I don't know why they don't do it now, because where he is, we've got kind of a little DRS train going right now between about 3 or 4 of the cars, and from Esteban Ocon all the way back to Piastri, and even Alex Albon in the Williams. We got 4 or 5 cars in a DRS train, and none of them are going to change positions. With the exception, Ocon's is pulled in for tires, so that's gone. That leaves Norris in the 10th position, leading the train. That gets him some points. It also gets McLaren some points. Probably the first points of the year for McLaren in this, the 3rd or 4th race? 4th race, I'm guessing it is. It's some interesting things going to happen here in the last 2 or 3 laps. So hang on to your seats. We're going to see what's going on. Okay, so we got 2 laps to go. Let me get rid of the sound here. We got 2 laps to go, and Hülkenberg has still not come in. He has got to come in or get disqualified. So he's got 1 lap to come in. Alonso has just set the fastest lap, but George Russell has just come into pits to get new tires. So I'm going to guess that George Russell is going to get the fastest lap, so that gives him 1 extra point towards the World Championship and takes 1 away from whoever had it before. Right now, Alonso's had it, Perez had it a lot, and Verstappen just had it about 2 laps ago. So Verstappen's closed the gap to his buddy Perez from 3 seconds down to 2 seconds. So, folks, this is not going to change. It's going to be Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, and Hamilton. That's going to be your top 5. So your podiums are going to be the 2 Red Bulls and the Ferrari. Actually, a good race by Charles Leclerc, although he's now right at 18 seconds back. That's kind of embarrassing, really, for Ferrari, that they would be that much off the pace of the Red Bull. But even more embarrassing has got to be for Mercedes, who are 20, 22, 24 seconds back. That, you know, when you're thinking about these races with the money being spent now, there should not be 2-3 seconds in it. Really, these guys should be challenging for the lead in the last 2 or 3 or 4 laps, like the 2 Red Bulls are doing now, but different teams should be doing this. So Alonso still has the fastest lap, but that's going to change. Like I said, Russell has come in. He's got new tires, and actually they're just putting the new tires on now. So he's going to come out and will be a fastest lap, and so he's going to finish way down now in the standings, because coming in he was at number 8. He's going to lose. Well, maybe he's not going to come. No, actually he'll be all right, because Esteban Ocon's 23 seconds behind him, so he's going to come out in the same place. He's going to come out in 8th position, so he's going to get a few points for that, and then you'll get the fastest lap point. But when is Hülkenberg going to come in and get his tires, or some kind of a pit stop? Because if he doesn't, he's going to be disqualified, and I can't see Haas letting this guy get disqualified. And now, as it's coming out to the end, we're on the last lap, and of course, at the last lap, all of the photographers come out, you know, to take pictures of the cars as they come across the finish line, and then the drivers do the lap afterwards and wave to everybody, and they're out there in pit lane all over the place. So when are they? Okay, so the Hülkenberg team is getting ready to come in. Has he come in? No, that's Perez. What? So Hülkenberg, it looks like there's all kinds of people all over the track where Hülkenberg is about to come in for his tire change. This is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. The photographers and the press people are actually out where the car is in the race to come into pit lane to get his tires. This is an amazing sight. So this is the most excitement of the race, actually. Just really, really amazing. And so they're just about to wave Perez across the finish line, and he's going to have a 2.5 second lead over his teammate Max Verstappen, and a 19-second lead Verstappen. So Perez is going to have a 21-second lead over Ferrari in 3rd position. So this is it's they're really replaying. This is just crazy. All the people out there in pit lane, all the press people and the photographers and everything, how none of them got hit by that car, I'll never know. That is just crazy. Somebody out there in officialdom, Formula One, not doing their job well at all there, because they had to expect that Hülkenberg was going to come in, because there's no way he's going to let himself get disqualified. So the race is over, and as I said, it is right now they're showing Max Verstappen with the fastest lap, but George Russell hasn't finished yet. So, but it is Red Bull 1 and 2, followed by Ferrari, followed by Aston Martin, followed by Ferrari, followed by Mercedes, and who's in 7th position? Lance Stroll. So you've got really a great day again for Aston Martin, coming in 4th and 7th. And then rounding out the top 10 is Niki Tsunoda. A good day for him. He scored himself some points. But all in all, I'd have to say a pretty boring race today, but that's going to happen sometimes. We're going to get boring races where we're literally just watching them go around and around in circles and not too much happening. Very strange for Azerbaijan or Baku, because it's usually a track that brings out lots and lots and lots of different, lots of incidents. But this year we've seen one incident. We've seen Valtteri Bottas come in 3-4 times for different car problems, and we've seen Zhou Guanyu go out with a car problem. But other than that, nothing too exciting happening. So I want to thank all of our sponsors. Thank you, Thenology. Thank you, Moms for Liberty. Thank you, CloudHub, and thank you, Give, Send, Go. And of course, we can't end the week without saying thank you to our producer and our technical guru, Andre Kuhn, for making this podcast somewhat professional. Actually, I think pretty professional. We're not professionals, but we're getting there. We're getting more professional every week. So until next week, when we will, unfortunately, we will not be at Miami. We appealed the fact we didn't get a press pass, but we didn't even get a response to the appeal. So that just shows you how far down the totem pole we are, right? But so anyway, until next week, this is your Formula One News Hour. This is Jonathan Steele signing off, and look forward to seeing everybody next week.